Okay, good morning, everybody. Hi, coaches out there. Welcome to our little seminar here, a little discussion about how to create lifelong leaders. With me today, I've got two special guests. First of all, the original coach of the Unified Track team at Noblesville High School, Andrew Skaggs. Andrew was the coach beginning in 2014, and Noblesville was one of the original 13. And to put that in perspective for some of you newbies, we started out with 13, and this year we've already got over 100 schools signed up, and we're still signing them up. We're about to 110, so we're looking forward to a really big year this year. Andrew stayed the coach there for 5 seasons. During that, he won the first ever sectional, and there were only 2 that year, and won 3 straight. In that third year, in 2016, he led the Millers to the runner-up in the state trophy. So, Andrew, great to have you with us here today. And also, we have Mitch Bonar. Mitch was a member of that original team in 2014. He was a junior at the time. He was co-captain of the team for 2 years. So the Millers won sectionals both of those years. And then he came back as an assistant coach under Andrew at his invitation. And during that time, he not only coached his sister, but he coached one of those teams that was state runner-up. So he's got a state runner-up ring too. So now I'm going to turn it mainly over to you. And Andrew, I'm going to start with you. When did you first hear about this unified track thing, and what kind of drew you to it?
I first heard about Unified Track, the actual IHSA Unified Track program. I heard about it probably about 2 weeks before we started assembling the program. And unified sports was not a new concept to me in college. I played on a unified basketball team that was also a state runner-up at one point.
Yeah.
There's a pattern there, but it was something that just always interested me. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed unified sports because it put everyone on an equal playing field, and it gave a chance for us to just all be involved. And when I found out about unified track and field through the IHSA, it was an absolute no-brainer that I wanted to be a part of it any way I could. And
So did you volunteer? Did you step forward? Had there been some sort of solicitation? Because as I said, we only had 13 schools in the entire state. How do you hear about it at Noblesville? How did that process go?
it actually, the first person to approach me about it was Mike Hash, the athletic director at the time. And he and I had talked. He knew I coached basketball for the middle school at the time, but I also had coached unified, um, and I was a special education teacher. Um, and we had he approached me, and I was honest with him, like, hey, I don't know much about track, but I know a lot about unified, and I would just love to be an assistant or a head coach or any type of coach, just to be a part of it. And the conversations went from there. But it was, as soon as he approached me about it, I was probably saying yes before he finished the sentence.
So let me ask you this: back when you were participating in unified basketball in college, what did you feel like you got out of it? What did you feel like the athletes got out of it? What made it so special to you?
I think it's interesting being asked this question because it's the question I started asking all of our athletes and partners at the end of every season. And I asked that question because I think I kind of knew the answer. The first year I started unified, I thought I was going to come in and, have to be um, more of just a person on the floor to make sure we're in the right spots, or um, that I was going to be helping and giving back. And the truth of it is uh, I didn't really have. I mean, we were a team. We held each other accountable. I learned that we all wanted to win. We all had goals. We wanted to get better. I also learned that I was going to learn a ton more than I gave, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
you get a ton more out of it than you expect going into it. And it was just a learning experience of of how capable our athletes are, um, and how independent they can be if given the chance.
Awesome. Well, let's switch up to you, Mitch. How are you this morning?
I'm great. I'm
Good.
at college right now, so I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit. I first met you when you were a junior in high school and watched you through your junior and senior year. And then after you graduated, you really didn't do much that year. Tell us about how you made that transition from high school to a year of kind of nothingness. And then what happened after that so these folks know what happened to you since.
Okay, so to start off, like in high school, I was a very shy young man. He came and visited me and gave me an opportunity for of a lifetime, I say nowadays, to come with him and a young lady from Carmel to the Special Olympics United States games or national games, and um, it kind of woke me up. He told me about Unified at that time, and which kind of led to me talking to Hash, which led to him talking to Skaggs, Coach Skaggs. But the I was a very nervous young man at that time. I wasn't very included in school, and after that in high school, after high school I didn't know what I was going to do because I have testing anxiety pretty bad, and I didn't know what was going to be capable. So I ended up going to Ivy Tech because my best friend, who is 5 foot nothing, while going at Purdue, and she inspired me to go to a community college, and here I
Okay,
am.
so let's talk about that for a second. You're of course talking about Abby Abel, who played point guard at Purdue, and as you said, she's about 5 foot nothing. Now she's an assistant coach at the high school level here in Indiana. But because of that relationship that developed through Unified Sports, she was a huge encouragement to you, but I know there were others who were on your unified team who were always encouraging you. They'd come home from college and you'd be playing video games and watching movies. And I know some of them also said, you can do more than that, Mitch, right?
Right. They sent me a lot of text messages of encouragement. We all hanged out, and it was a good it was a good wake up call. I say it woke me up.
And you started taking some courses at Ivy Tech. And again, we at least partially credit that to your involvement with Unified Sports and the friends and the support network that you got from them and the, quite frankly, courage that you got from them. And then what happened after you got to Ivy Tech? You took one course that first year, and then where'd you go from there?
I started taking three and then maybe four, and then I realized that I could do college. So I looked into managing our college basketball team as well when I was there. And I was also an assistant coach under Skaggs at that time.
And then you did so well at Ivy Tech. What came next?
I transferred to Indiana Wesleyan, and that is where I am today.
And you're a full-time student at Indiana Wesleyan with about a 3.0 grade point average. Is that right, or more than that?
3.3.
Okay, excuse
It's
me.
gone up. It's gone up.
All right. 3.3 grade point average is a full-time student in college. That's fantastic. So would you agree with me that unified sports and the relationships and the confidence, all that had a huge impact on your life?
Of course, if without Unified, I think I'd still be that kid who was wondering what I had next in life or what potential I had. Thanks to being allowed to lead that unified team, I was realized I was a I was a born leader. Kind of, I was born to help others understand that they're capable of so much more and not be afraid of anything that comes in front of them and
Yeah,
be ready.
you did a great job of passing that lesson along. Andrew, let's go back to you for a second. You were close enough to where I lived that I got to come out to some of your practice. I was there for your very first practice, which was like most first practices, a disaster.
Yep.
Nobody knows what to do. Yeah, most of the coaches like yourself don't have a background in track and field, but I was able to observe you as you got further and further into it. Really, I'd go out and I couldn't tell the athletes from the partners. Was that intentional? And if so, what sort of things did you do to make that happen?
It was definitely intentional, and it was also organic in a way. Um, it helped. Uh, Mike Cash doesn't ever get enough credit for how he helped that team get created. Um, you know, really with a new sport, any sport, especially unified, we had to find athletes and partners. And Mike and I talked when we were starting, to just try and get this team together to even field a team. And before we even had a parent meeting, and he said, I think we're going to start with the Student Leadership Council, to find some of our partners. And then from there, um, we had a coach, like a parent meeting, a call out meeting for some of our athletes. And there were just two athletes there, and two sets of parents. And one of those athletes was Mitch. And um, so between Mike Hash kind of knowing the right group of kids to start with for partners, and then really we thought, well, this might be over. We don't have enough athletes to even field a team. And the next day, I think Mitch had recruited 6 or 7 athletes. I mean, it was unbelievable. So between Mike and Mitch, and both of their visions, they made it really easy. Then practice was, hey, we're a first year team. We're all in this together. And a lot of us are doing this for the first time. We had great athletes, great partners, as far as on the physical side, but none of us I mean, some had some track experience, but we were all in it together. And I think that's the culture that was created organically. And then once we saw it happening, we realized we're not touching this. We're not changing this. This is going to work. And everyone was holding each other accountable. Um, and it really kind of, I had nothing to do with it besides the fact that I knew when it was working not to change it. Um, and I think that's the key is everyone was taking this as seriously as possible. They wanted to win. We wanted to get better every day, and that's just the culture we fostered. And it really, um, because there were only two coaches for the whole team, and we were at a big track field, you really have to let the kids uh, be free to practice and be accountable, because you can only make it so many places. And I think that was the other big thing, is that um, I didn't babysit.
Yeah.
I was there, and I made sure we were safe and doing what we needed to do. But you know, we had a culture that can be created, but that really took it and ran with it. No pun intended.
So a couple follow-up questions there. You said that Mike Hash, who was the athletic director at the time, said he was going to go to the Student Leadership Council. You're talking about an athletic group, as I recall. It's
School athletic.
what some schools might call a captain's council or a student advisory committee to the athletic director. So you had some really good kids who were out of season. I remember a couple of soccer kids who were out there, even though they were playing travel and playing year round, they still made time for that. But every time I saw what was going on, it was like if you're leading calisthenics or you're leading stretching, there was always an athlete and a partner out there together leading that. And that seemed to be something that was intentional on your part as well.
A quick follow up on that. It was, I think I led calisthenics. I think I led the warm ups one time at the beginning, and it was me, an athlete, and a partner, just so we could understand what we needed to do, what our
Sure.
structure was going to be. And then after that, we had an athlete and a partner every time leading it, or a couple athletes, a couple partners, and I'm on the sideline, and I'm just there really trying to talk to kids, athletes and partners, both, just walking around, asking how their day was, getting to know them a little bit, creating a culture where they could talk to me if they had a problem or an issue. But it really, as much, sometimes being the best leader for a program is by not really leading anything.
I understand.
And so that's really what anything that I could have an athlete or partner do, they were doing. I was not.
And I particularly agree with that. And I had many years working with high school kids. When you're dealing with high school kids, the job of the adult is, like you said, keep them safe, keep them
Yep.
online, but they've got to take accountabilities for what's going on. And I saw you do that masterfully. Mitch, let's turn over to you for a second. Here you were, a kid who's been all the way through sophomore year. You hadn't ever really been invited to be a part of anything other than Special Olympics away from school, but at school, you'd had no clubs, no sports, nothing. Suddenly, you've not only got unified track, but you're a captain. Remember what that felt like, and maybe the first time you were out there leading the entire group in stretching exercises or something like that. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I remember that immensely. As soon as I realized I was one of the captains and stuff, I remember talking. It was before we even went out to practice. I was telling everybody that we were winning sectionals right here, and everybody was telling me, "Mitch, what if we don't win it? Are you gonna be okay?" I'm like, "No, I know we're gonna win sectionals this year," because I was so confident in that relationships that we built. And um, being out there and helping lead stretches was uh, great, and it also allowed me to. It held me accountable, but it also helped them keep me accountable if I wasn't on top of everything and stuff. And
And did you find that carrying over to like the classroom and other areas of your life?
oh yeah, my whole life I had a student assistant or an aide or I don't know para
Yeah, an
assistant,
aide. Sure.
para assistant with me, and I had that all the way up to senior year, and senior year I did not have one, and I was building more confidence in my life, and I was giving more opportunities to find um, my strengths in different subjects and stuff, and then learning that having lunch with my friends from track was the best. I mean, learning that we had the same goal and we were ready to achieve greatness.
Okay, so let's talk about that briefly. And it's got nothing to do with track other than it came out of track. But I've heard you in your speeches talk about your sophomore year when you'd walk down the hallway and you'd recognize all these athletes from sports and you knew what their records were and you knew who they were and you knew what their positions were, and they'd walk by you and they didn't even see you. You were like invisible. How did that change junior year when instead of being isolated eating lunch alone or with the other special needs students, how did that change junior and senior year for you?
Junior and senior year were a blessing because it allowed them to see I was a lot more like them than different. And that's always been my goal in life, and it still is my message in life that to show people that people with disabilities are more alike them than different. And allowed me to eat lunch with them more. And this isn't the athletes picking on me because I was different. It was them sitting with me because I was an athlete and I was a student athlete like them.
And you were a teammate. It's the same story as Jackie Robinson. When we broke the color barrier, suddenly you weren't one of them. You're a teammate.
Yep.
And I've heard you say how some of those same guys who became your friends had really made fun of you earlier. And then after you became a teammate, nobody made fun of you or they had to deal with them too.
Yep.
Life changing, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Then Andrew, you made a huge step. You made a huge statement. You invited Mitch to come back and be part of your coaching staff. Talk about how you got that idea, what sort of challenges that presented, and just that whole concept of why'd you do it?
It didn't even, it kind of was just a reflex, I didn't even think about it. It was, Mitch was, a senior and he was about to move on, and I just didn't see any other option. There was no chance he was just not going to be around it all of a sudden. And we needed him. he created this leadership ability to, I think this term's used sometimes too much, but to bridge the gap. So Mitch was able to organically connect athletes and partners and show kind of the way to do it. Sometimes our partners would come in and they would, you know, they didn't mean to, but they would maybe talk in a baby voice, or they would try and do too much for our athletes and really try and be, I call it like a parent at the track. And Mitch was able to kind of show like, hey, no, they can run this, or they can do this, and also just show the correct way to talk, either to speak, and it's just, we needed him. I mean, that's the truth of it. It wasn't I didn't think anything of it at the time. It just seemed like a no-brainer, and he'd been around it so long from the beginning and such a big part of it. We needed him on the staff. There were a couple roadblocks with him being the age he was, because there are some rules with the schools about how old a coach needs to be, or what. We were able to kind of work through it and structure it in a way that worked. But
as I recall, you still had high expectations. He had to pass the test that the other
Yes.
coaches exact, and you, yeah.
No, it was not a charity. I mean, there was no charity here. He had to earn it. He had to be there every day. He was held accountable as a coach, like I was. It was not an easy thing to do, and we also had to learn, because Mitch cares so much about unified sports. He would come to me a lot of practices saying, hey, coach, I'm kind of upset. I don't feel like this group's taking it, as serious. And he was right. And he'd be ready to go kind of get on him. And I'd say, hey, Mitch, you're the assistant. Here's what's going to happen. I'll go get on him. You go build him up afterwards. And so it gave a chance to learn, for him to learn how to coach and be a leader, not just a captain, but different coaching styles, and different people need different coaching. And it gave Mitch that chance. So
yeah, that's an important lesson to learn. And whether you're coaching regular track or unified track, the same principles apply, I'm sure. Mitch, what did it mean to you to become an assistant coach on a team, the first in the state, as far as I know?
Honestly, it was a wake up call. If I remember correctly, I know that I had to take a lot of coaching classes to be qualified. But I remember the importance of it for me was I saw how much of an impact it had in my life, and I wanted them to see that. And I got to coach my little sister in track, and not a lot of people get to say that. And stuff. It was
Yeah, but I can also remember you asking me a few times, how do I coach my sister? And that's hard. Some of us have coached our own children, and it's hard when you're coaching a family member.
right.
So you handled that well, I thought.
I also learned that sometimes, like Coach Skaggs said, sometimes you got to learn that people take coaching in different ways, and you got to learn how to be that voice for how they take that coaching. So it might be verbal coaching, it might be showing them how to do it in by actually doing it with them, which I've always enjoyed about coaching is showing them how capable they are is by doing it with them and walking with them.
Right.
And sometimes also having them do it. But I think the most rewarding moment in my coaching career, and I think this is Skaggs as well, so I don't want to take it, so I'll let him say it. But the most rewarding moment in my coaching career for me was seeing my buddy Zach, who has CP like I do, walk the whole 100 meters or jog the whole 100 meters without his walker, which he usually has with him everywhere. And it was a that was my favorite coaching moment, is seeing him achieve his goal of being
I
able
was,
to
yeah,
do
I was there that day and I cried because I don't think any of us had ever seen him without his walker.
No.
You know, he used it for everything. So to see him take the line for the 100 with his walker and then drop it off and go without it, wow, still get choked up.
That was
Well,
just great.
we're approaching the end of our time, so Andrew, I'm just going to give you one last chance. You got a lot of new coaches in the audience right now. We're just getting started, going through those frustrations of trying to recruit a team and how to treat them. So, what final advice do you have for them, particularly when it comes to how do you treat athletes and how do you make lifelong leaders out of them?
I think you treat, that's just great. Take it a day at a time first. I mean, um, we're all in uncharted. I mean, it's new. Even though it's been around now for years, it's new, and every practice is going to be different. I think the best way to treat athletes and partners is the same. Um, we take care of them, we make sure we know what their needs are, but then we treat them the same and we hold them accountable. Um, we can't force it. If an athlete is not on that day, um, don't spend their whole practice trying to get them to do what you want them to do. Give them the option, and then start coaching. Spend that time, and they'll come around. I mean, it's frustration sometimes, but it's the best. And enjoy it. There's not a day that I don't miss it. I have all my unified stuff still in my office here. Um, no matter how bad of a mood I was in before I got to practice or a game, it was it was changed immediately. So enjoy it, embrace it, and be yourself. Before I coached basketball, and as a basketball coach, I thought I needed to be all the basketball coaches I had growing up. I don't have that personality. I'm not a tough guy. Um, and I think my athletes those first 2 years of coaching basketball saw right through it. And when I started coaching unified track and I was myself, I think that changed everything. I mean, just be who you are, and that kind of shows the kids it's okay to be who they are too.
Awesome. And what about you, Mitch? What's your final words to these coaches out here coming from both a former athlete and a former coach?
know that we are capable, and don't be afraid to show how capable they are. And if I have one thing, is athletes can achieve the big goals. It might take them longer, or it might be a little harder for them, but they can achieve those.
Well, we miss you both. Andrew, I know you've gone on to a different career and married, have a family now. But I'm guessing that someday when those family gets a little bit older, you'll be back because you just seem to be passionate about it. And Mitch, I know that after you're through with college, you'll plan to be back as well. Well, I want to thank you both for being part of this. This is a great opportunity. We're very excited about the new Coaches Association and really glad you guys took the time to be with us today. And one final thank you to you. And folks, we're going to turn it back over to the MC at this time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
And we're out.